Might be a really short meeting.
Your Honor,
Yes.
if Ms. Harvey is not here, I don't.
Does anybody have an objection to the approval of the minutes? No. Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved from the last meeting. We only have one hearing on the docket today. It is an advanced hearing that was continued from the last session. It is case number CDEF 2020-43. Christine Josephine Harvey and Teresa Michelle Hens, address 125 Esmeralda Avenue in Daytona Beach Shores. And you are Ms. Harvey? Okay. Ms. Herstein?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just need one moment, please.
Okay. All right. And Ms. Harvey, I received a packet that I think had 64 pages that you wanted me to read, and I have read every single word of those. Okay? "64 pages. Sherry, thank you for the Coke Zero. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your patience, Your Honor. I am not seeing my notes, so I'm going to go without.
Okay. Now, we introduced last session most of, or all of what the city had asked for into evidence previously.
Thank you.
So
And
that is still in evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to keep that in evidence, and I'd also like to ask that each of the documents provided by the city and the Code Enforcement Special Magistrate's notebook for this case be accepted as evidence, along with the slides in the PowerPoint program, which may or may not be shown today. Many of them being the same, but also some being updated, having been updated to reflect both the continuance of the last hearing and shifting dates forward for different things, including an affidavit of minimum costs.
Okay. All right. Well, the first question that I have,
Your Honor, I'm sorry. Are the documents accepted as requested, accepted?
they previously are in evidence, so,
I do have new submissions that were made in this notebook
Okay.
package, which have some updates as far as the follow-up log and the affidavit of minimum costs. So there were some things that were updated. That's why I'm asking that the today's packet and PowerPoint presentation also be accepted into evidence, knowing that some are duplicative.
okay. Ms. Harvey, were you provided with a copy of what the city is asking to put into evidence?
Yes.
And do you have a legal objection to it not coming into evidence? Okay, then it'll be received in evidence.
Your Honor.
The first question I have is, were the fees and costs paid within 48 hours, which was the condition of getting the continuance?
Yes, Your Honor, they were.
Okay.
And I'd like to travel through a brief overview. I don't need to go back through.
Sure.
Like I said, we already did some things at the last meeting, but I would like to just give a brief overview before turning things over to Ms. Harvey. This is a second compliance hearing, which was continued from the April 20th, 2023 hearing date to give the respondent another opportunity to prepare for and present her testimony and evidence for fine reduction or rescission. This case had 9 violations associated with it, which began accruing fines on January 21st, 2021. That was the first, or actually the 22nd was the first fined date. Of those 9 violations, the first one became compliant after 162 days, and the last of those became compliant after 491 fined days. As I've already listed the 9 violations and shown pictures and evidence of non-compliance and then compliance, which you can see if you wish to, or we could pull up on the slides, pages 4A 57 through 4A 65. As I've already done that, I'll refer instead to the affidavit of non-compliance shown on 4A 1718 and the affidavit of compliance shown on 4A 2829 with the order imposing fine lien signed by His Honor previously, which you can see in between those two on 4A 2627. Administrative fees owed for previous hearings were paid on April 20th, immediately after that hearing was continued. Administrative fees of $121.13 are being requested for reimbursement with an affidavit available on page 4A52. We bring this property before you today requesting an order number 12 or an order number 13 as His Honor sees fit, and I am available to answer any questions as desired.
Okay. Pretty clear idea as to why we're here and what's going on as far as what went wrong and what needed to be done and how long it took.
Thank you, Your Honor. And if you do have questions, of course, I'm available.
Okay. Ms. Harvey, do you have any questions for Ms. Herstein?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Harvey, would you like to present anything?
Yes.
All right, come on up. Get situated. You ready?
Get to
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, before you get started, I want to explain to you what I did and why to help you persuade me to do something different, okay? Your fine was based upon non-compliance with the city's codes for a set number of days, up to 491, and at $250 a day. I can't say I'll take $20,000 off the fine because I feel like it.
Yeah.
You have to give me a basis from the start of the fines, which was January 19th, 2021, till the end, as to why certain events were out of your control and should not count in the timeline. So what we're talking is a math problem here. Your job is to try to reduce the number 491 to something else. You understand?
Yes.
Okay. So what would you like to say?
So with that being said, I would like to see if I could submit 3 documents.
Okay. I got 64 pages from you yesterday.
Yes.
Are these the same pages?
No, these are basically going to be kind of like, I'm going to say itinerary? No. For the packet. That I'm
Okay.
submitting.
Have you given them to Ms. Herstein?
No, but I do have the copies.
All right. Could you give them to her first?
Should be 3 pages now.
Okay, so this is one for the city clerk and one for me?
I think so. Wait, so you only need 2?
It's okay. Okay, I have 2 sets. One is being presented to the city clerk.
Okay. In just a second, I want Ms. Herstein to have a look at them. She's entitled to object if she sees something legally or fundamentally wrong. Now, there are 2 types of
There's one more.
What?
There's like one more, I'm sorry.
All right.
It's just kind of like the summary of what I'm going to say.
Okay. Again, giving one to the city clerk.
Okay, there's 2 types of documents in this situation. One set is evidence that proves the fact. The other is a demonstrative aid, like a calendar, that shows when something happened.
Yes.
Is this evidence or a demonstrative aid?
Demonstrative aid.
Okay. All right. Which has a lot looser standard for being presented. Ms. Herstein, do you have any objection to me looking at these documents?
I don't, Your Honor. I haven't read every single word, but I don't have an objection at this point. I don't see anything that is either different from the city's knowledge or that the city would object to.
Okay. Can I see what you'd like me to, and then give me a second to look it over, okay? Thank you.
Yes.
All right, delay. Okay, I've had a quick glance through them. Before we start, you and a Ms. Henny are listed. Who is she?
Hens, like Teresa Hens?
Yes, Hens.
Okay, that's my mom's maiden name.
Okay, so that's your mother,
Yeah.
and the two of you own the property together.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Your presentation, what would you like to do?
Okay. Well, I guess we could start by looking at the reference to the evidence.
Okay.
Okay. So with that being said, the handyman situation.
We need to maybe switch
Oh.
you to that microphone
Okay.
or closer to this one or something.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Picking up on her.
So, starting with closing on the loan, it takes 30 days to get the bid from the contractor, and then another 30 days to close, so it took 60 days to close, and then that set the budget for the project.
Okay, you've already lost me.
Sorry.
Why don't you start with you bought this thing, all right?
Okay, so July 19th was the closing date.
Of what year?
2019.
2019.
Yes, and then, so that was towards the end of 2019, and then at some point between August and September is when the handyman starts to squat at the property and changes the locks and moves in and starts to do work that is not authorized. And then in September, Hurricane Dorian,
Of what year?
2019.
Okay. The fines started to accrue in January 2021.
Yeah.
So anything that happened prior to that date isn't going to help you.
So some of those days that I feel like it's not my responsibility, the dates are like even sooner than the fines, but they do progress into the fines as well.
Okay.
Okay. So, bear with me.
All right.
Okay. So anyway, once that damage had been done to the kitchen, mainly the cabinets were ripped out, and when he ripped out the drop ceiling is what made the electrical wires kind of hang down. So once that happened, it became extremely hard to get a contractor to want to take on the project due to the stop orders and just the damage. It was almost like some contractors would recommend me to get like a fire specialist or this type of specialist because it was just like overwhelming for them to see, I guess, like the cut wires and stuff like that. So that's why I attributed the delay from the handyman from August 2019, when he first started doing that unpermitted work, all the way until May 19th, when the first permit was pulled for the kitchen, because I do feel that he caused that delay as well because of trust issues that were created with the head inspector. So once that work started that was not allowed through HUD, it kind of like made the trust level just kind of disappear. And then, so it just made things like really hard to communicate with the HUD inspector, and that's why I
Okay.
attributed those days.
Again, this is your case, but
Okay.
why? You said trust levels disappeared and it caused problems with the HUD inspector.
Okay, so if
Why
you go
did that?
to page 2, okay, so things were already really high stakes. This is what this page is showing because to get the bid in order for the loan to even close, there had to be a ton of adjustments. And then when it went through, it still wasn't accurate for everything that needed to be done at the house because Glenn, the inspector, actually did miss a lot of major fines. Like, for instance, the ductwork was completely outdated, like from the 60s, so it was only designed for heat. So every time it was on, it would create like major condensation throughout the whole attic. So basically.
When you bought this house,
Yes.
did you look at it beforehand?
Well, I did not get to go inside when I first made the offer. Eventually, I did get to go into it, but with being my first home, I didn't really know to. I actually did see a major ton of water in the duct because the receiving duct, you just open it and there's just water in the duct. Because they had the receiver in the garage, so the ducts were not insulated at all in the garage, so they're just completely full of water. So I did notice that. For some reason, he didn't. And also, the first inspection he did, I was not there. I was working, so my mom had to meet him. And they're both kind of like older, so they just maybe didn't notice as many details that I would have found important. And then the little reference pages here kind of just reinforce everything I said. So page 10 and 10 and a half is the explains more of the lawsuit, where he just tries to say work that didn't happen, and it does show that he said that he was living there and deducted like $700 for living there. So my mom.
You didn't have a lawyer for this either, did you?
For
This lawsuit?
this one right here, like today.
No. When you guys got,
Oh yeah, she did have a
she did or did not?
attorney. Yes.
She did.
She did. And he advised her to just settle and just pay whatever, because the attorney fees would have been more to fight him, apparently, which I was pretty upset about, because I wanted her to, you know, say this didn't happen, but I guess it was more affordable to just pay him than to fight him. And legal fees, like,
Okay.
that's what she said. So, so I basically.
I'm not here to give legal advice, but your lawsuit was legally insufficient on its face and should have been dismissed.
That's exactly what I was thinking, because there was never a contract signed, none of that, like. But he did change his address to my house, so we were just so happy to have him out, because during Dorian, he took all his stuff out of the house. He thought the house was gonna flood and all this, so during that time, I went there and I had my friend with me who was like a guy, and I told him the situation and he changed the locks. The handyman showed up when we were changing the locks and threw a temper tantrum, grabbed some of his stuff, and told me that he was gonna put a lien on the house, which I didn't even know what that meant at the time. So,
Okay.
yeah, which there was never an agreement where it was like, you're gonna do this work, blah, blah, blah. He was literally just made it seem like he was helping me, like, oh, you can use my tools, and then it turned into like him squatting there. So there was never a lease agreement.
Okay.
Yeah. And we didn't want to get the police involved with evicting him, because with the renovation loan, I mean, insurance saying like no one can live there, I was scared that I was just so scared the whole time of this house that like it was gonna default and like I would lose the house, because there was already so much going on. Like if you look at the evidence on page 14, it actually says that they can like default on the loan if construction does not start within 30 days or if it ceases for more than 30 days. So practically the whole project I was like at risk for being defaulted until Kayla took the job, which happened in 2020. And then she was not able to pull a permit until 2020, August 23rd.
Why?
So as far as why she was not able to pull the permits until then,
See, again, I'm trying to help
Or you
you,
just like go through the list, it might make more sense.
but, all right.
Okay.
I understand she didn't pull the permit till then, which, at first blush, looks like you guys sat on the project, not that there was a delay, not your fault.
So, when the first bid went through, and then there was some time after that, and then the Harkins contractor who did the original bid, they said like, it's too far away and we're too busy now. Like, they were thinking they were gonna start the project sooner. They basically backed out.
So your first contractor backed out.
The one that we had to have to close on the loan.
Okay.
So once that happened, that set in the budget for $68,000. You can't go above that. There's a 10% contingency with that, so 10% above that
$6,800.
is, yes.
You were working with roughly $73,000
Yes.
to renovate the house.
And also, in one of the text message screenshots, Kayla gives a rough estimate when I first over text for $75,000, which did include the kitchen. Because when we were texting, there was never any talk about, oh, like, you can't do the kitchen or anything like I really wanted her to pull the permits for that at the same time that she started pulling the permits for everything else. But due to the damage that happened from the handyman, the HUD inspector didn't want her to touch the kitchen.
Okay, again, I'm really trying hard to help you.
Okay.
When did you hire Kayla?
Okay, so Kayla was hired. So everything just goes through the HUD inspector, and sometimes I don't even get to sign anything. Like, it got to a point where they were just going through my mom. And I don't know why I didn't have to sign it. Maybe because she was like the person who has like more money and signed on the house. But at some point I got cut off from communications. But as far as
Why isn't your mom here?
it was never meant to be her project. She just ended up co-signing because she didn't want me to purchase a house in the $100,000 price range. So she ended up co-signing, which upped my budget, which led me to this situation. But she was never meant to be active in any of this. She's like not as sharp when it comes to stuff like that, which is why I believe the lawsuit did happen, because when she met him, she was just like ready to hand out money essentially for nothing. And it was really upsetting to me. Like, this whole process has been like a major journey. Like, me and my mom during this process, she was like just completely infuriated with me because she didn't expect to have to pay out of pocket for a roof, for a kitchen, all this stuff that HUD kind of didn't cover. Because okay, and then the other thing was the application process for the HUD inspectors, or no, for the contractors. They have to be a certain type of GC. They have to, let me see which one it is.
Why don't we do this? All right? I have a list of the code enforcement violations and the number of days that it took to rectify them.
Yes.
Why don't we take each one in turn?
Okay.
You still haven't answered the question that I asked you.
Which one?
When did you hire Kayla?
Okay. Kayla, well, that's the thing. It's like, I don't have a date where I can say she was definitely confirmed hired on this day. All I have is just our texting conversations. So the date that she receives the paperwork to apply for the job was 2020, May 14th. So she receives the paperwork on that day. So she applies and submits the paperwork to Glenn by May 26th, later that month.
2020.
Yes.
So that's still 10 months before, yeah, about 10 months before you have your
Yes,
first
so-
hearing.
Me texting with Kayla, telling her about the stop work order and all the problems, she's willing to fix it. And we discussed that during the time that she's hired. And then on June 10th, she texts me and says, I don't really know if I can pull the permit for that because of Glenn, but she recommended that we get the ball rolling.
And this is
And-
still 2020, right?
Yes. So we're gonna get into 2021 soon. Okay, so she's saying like, I recommend you just get the ball rolling and start this process, and if anything, we can write up some change orders and, you know, tell Glenn about the change orders, but right now, let's just get the ball rolling because it's been so long, like literally a year to hire a contractor. So, and there had been multiple contractors that came out. I looked for their estimates, but I could not find them because this was so long ago that happened, like 3 years ago now.
Right, but you're still not in trouble at this point.
Yeah, I'm getting there, I promise.
Okay.
Okay. This is such a long story.
It is.
I know. Okay, so she recommends getting the ball rolling. We can deal with change orders and all that later. But at this time, she's not gonna listen to me if I say like we have to pull the permit because she's just trying to like appease Glenn.
Why?
Because Glenn is rightfully, you know, a little upset about what happened with the kitchen, and he's like taking it personally for some reason, and he doesn't understand that you know, I like cried when I got to the house and the kitchen was ripped out. Like, I just like love that house because it took me a year to even get that house. I made offers on 6 properties in Daytona Beach Shores, and like it just takes forever, especially with the renovation loan because you're competing with cash buyers. Okay, so anyway.
Okay. You're
I'm trying to get there. Okay. Okay, so
Ms.
moving
Harvey,
forward.
hold on a second.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm looking for?
Yes.
What do you think I want?
Let's skip
You haven't even
2021.
raised what I'm looking for.
Let's get in. I was just thinking that I would have like unlimited time.
You have my morning,
Okay.
okay? But you can talk all morning and it seems not get to the information I want. I want to know what delays during the 491 days of non-compliance you would prescribe as not being your or your agent's fault.
Okay.
And I've been where
I
you
guess I'll
are,
just stick
where
with
suddenly
these
your notes don't make any sense. I get that.
I'll just try to stick to the points because they do cover what you're asking for.
Well, I
But I
can,
just feel the need to like explain the whole timeline.
okay, I can go through each violation if you'd like, and you can talk about.
The violations.
Well, all right, for instance, grass and weeds over 12 inches high. It took you 490 days to cut the lawn.
Okay, so I would
Why?
like to say that reasonably, it was extremely overgrown in 2020 from.
You
because
could have
she-
gone out there with
well, she-
hand scissors and taken care of it.
She did, there was a time where they were inspecting in 2020, but the fines did not start until January 21st, 2021. So even though I'm like telling you details about this, technically it was not compliant during this time. So, okay, so basically these 3 months, it was extremely, completely overgrown. So it took
3 months.
July through September of 2020, it was overgrown extremely. So it did take a few mows to get it maintainable. And I did have lawn companies help me a few times, but they ultimately like ended up quitting because I guess his lawnmower got messed up on like a coquina rock, because the yard is just infested with coquina rocks. Anywhere you dig, anywhere you do anything, there's coquina rocks. I don't know why. The guy just really liked coquina rocks. So it was like a whole like digging process. And during that digging process, I also found like giant paver walkways, which was also extremely time consuming to remove because I don't have like a tractor and then I can't just like go rent a tractor and do all this crazy contracting stuff because the project is being overseen by Kayla. That makes sense.
So the lawn's overgrown.
Yes.
When you try to cut it, you find rocks in the lawn that you didn't know were there.
There's so many rocks. So those eventually are, removed. And I get a weed whacker, and I can confidently say that I mowed the yard October 18th of 2020. And from there on, I sporadically maintain the yard. Also February 26th, 2021. The window replacement company comes out on January 21st, 2021. And in those photos, the yard does start to become maintained, but there is those few weeds that are popping up.
Well, you have the packet from the city, right? You have it with you?
Yes.
All right, look at page A57.
You said A57?
A57.
That one should be the photo. There.
It's got pictures of the house on it.
Okay. Okay.
Do you wear glasses?
No.
Okay, you're looking at it like you forgot your glasses.
Yeah, so.
Okay, you got those pictures, right?
So like I said, it was extremely overgrown in the beginning months of September 2020 and July 2020. So like those first 3 months, and then
Okay, so what I'm concerned about is, see the picture August 25th, 2021. It's
is that on the same page?
it's the middle one,
Okay.
okay?
Wait, are you about the one that says reinspection October 5th?
October 5th,
Okay.
2021.
Okay.
That's during the time where the fines are running.
Oh, 2020, yeah. Okay, so I would say,
Could you talk about that?
yes. So the following month, October 30th, you can see on the property line, it is a little bit tall, but I do believe that that's a major improvement from a few months earlier. So it was starting to be maintained, and every time I went there, I would like mow it. But I don't live there, and it's under construction, so I feel like
Where were you living?
I was living in Eustis.
Okay.
Yes. So
And you
over
would
an
mow
hour.
this yourself?
Yes. Every time I went there, I would mow it. A lot of times I did have like my daughter with me. At this time, things were just really tight. I did try to hire the maintenance lawn company, but they were just not reliable. And then he hit the rock and like just quit. Also, there's a cement river in the front yard with a bridge that I had to remove with a jackhammer. And that was also very time consuming. You can see that one really well in the aerial shot that I included.
And what page was that?
That would be 39. like pointed out, there was also a large bush tree with like a huge stump right in the front of the house. So there was progress to remove all of that actively since I bought the house. It's just like a huge undertaking because it was mature landscaping, and then every single coconut rock you see is like a rebar and like cemented down. There's also various like cement things with electrical in them, just because he had like a whole custom yard before with like a koi pond and everything. There's a line for the fountain that had to be dealt with as well.
Okay, but again,
Okay.
you bought this house.
Yeah, so,
It's not like somebody snuck in the middle of the night and put this stuff here,
yeah.
right?
So as far as the grass being overgrown, it's getting maintained, but I'm just trying to explain that there's more to it than that, that's just drawing it out. And I know it was there when I bought the house, so I guess that's not so much an excuse, just like a reasoning why it's being done.
Right, and we've got 491 days in question, and I'm looking for a reason to get rid of some of those days.
So as far as the grass, I was hoping that basically from with some, you said not to talk about the days where I'm not getting fined, but I would like to start it in 2021 then. So when the fines started, I think that there was a lot of initiative to mow the yard. Every time I mowed the yard, I would call her.
Call who?
Gwen.
Okay,
So it was like an active thing where I'm constantly trying to mow the yard, and then it's just like never getting better. And there was at one point we had a conversation about like what is weeds, because like those little rubbery ones with the little pink flowers and they grow like weeds but they're kind of cute.
Mhm.
I thought these are nice. I'm just gonna let them go around the tree a little bit around the house because there's like a little flower garden along the front thing. And then like she had to explain to me like this is still keeping you out of ordinance.
compliance.
So just little things like that. Throughout this whole time, towards the end especially, I would call her and be like, hey, is everything fine now? Like I was just a little bit oblivious to this whole process. The first hearing, I was oblivious to. I don't know. I
Well-
would love to be here.
Let's try this from a different angle.
Okay.
Okay? When did you find out you were being fined?
Well, my mother called the city. Because I know at one point she handed me one in person.
She handed you what?
I think she handed me one of the forms in person, but I wasn't sure if that one was the one with fines. I would say I'm not sure at which point I knew that. I would probably say like, let me look at the communication log.
Okay. Okay. Again, referring to what the city has. Page 4A7.
Yes.
You there?
Yeah.
See the entry labeled April 12th, 2021?
Yes.
Please read that to yourself.
Yeah, so the conversation about keeping any evidence, I never got to have that conversation with Glenn. Around this time is when everything kind of switched to going through my mom. And she at one point even changed the address to her mother's house for both me and her.
Okay, did you read the paragraph?
And she thought the permits were obtained, they were not. She thought, you know, I don't know why she said she thinks the existing contractor won't be taking the kitchen, and then the next day, they take the kitchen.
Okay.
So that just shows a little.
All right, this is the last little bit I'm going to help you on, and then I'm really overstepping my line. According to what you're saying here, the HUD inspector died,
Yeah.
and that caused a delay. You might want to talk about that.
Okay. I'm just gonna stick to this. This makes sense. This is like what you want. Just.
Okay. I'm going to tell you a quick story.
Okay.
All right? Listen very closely. I used to be the chief county judge here in Volusia County, and I was riding up in an elevator, and this gentleman said to me, "Do you know Judge DeLaRoche?" And I'm not allowed to tell him who I am. So I said yes and said nothing else. And he said, "What do you think of this? I'm going to present my case in this way." And I said, "You know, I know he likes it presented this way." He said, no, this'll fool him. I said, "Okay, good luck, have a good day." I come out in court, and he's standing the same place you are, and I said, "Well, how are you going to present this?" Okay, do you understand the point of the story? I just told you what I think might help you.
Okay.
So why don't you talk about the death of Glenn?
Okay.
Because did you kill Glenn?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
So Glenn's death was entirely not your fault.
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking for things that are entirely not your fault.
Okay, so Glenn passed away October 2020.
Okay, and what effect did that have on the project?
So we did not receive formal confirmation of his death, especially me. I found out through Kayla. So I don't really know when they found out, but March 2021 is when formally we were alerted.
So nobody from HUD was available to approve
Yes.
contractors or loans?
Yes, so there was no one to approve Kayla's work if she was completed, and also the change orders could not be submitted during that time.
And when did you get a new HUD inspector?
It's hard to say because, like I said, Kayla didn't include me to show up anymore. Like, she just had that thing rolling.
She just left.
Like, she just had it rolling with the inspector to where she would only go to the house to meet with him. I never met him. I never heard his voice or talked on the phone with him. That happened. So, but I would say that it affected the project as far as hiring a new person until May 28th, 2021.
May 28th, 2021.
Yes. So from October 2020 to May 28th, 2021. And I can go more into detail on that too.
Okay, well, this is your presentation, and I told you that was the last thing I was going to say.
Okay.
So whatever you want to say, you can.
And I accredited that date because that was the date that the new HUD inspector kind of initiated the project and told Kayla, like, hey, I don't care if you pull the kitchen permit. So on that date, that was the same day as well that she pulled the kitchen permit. The kitchen plumbing. And during that week, she also submitted the change order to him for the siding. The permit did say new window panes, so I got excited, like, oh, she actually had the windows, but I think she just added it to the permit, so. She didn't. Okay. So Glenn passing away, and that was the date. And then also, when Kayla first applied for the job, her Volusia County certificate was like out of date. So she had a little delay with taking the job as well. It doesn't really specify how long the delay was, but I'm gonna say like a week.
Well, why did you hire a contractor that didn't have a certificate?
I didn't know, actually. She had to tell Kayla. Like, Kayla didn't even know. I don't even know what's going on.
Why didn't you bring Kayla with you today?
I don't think she would be reliable. I don't think she would even show up. I don't know. She's like I've been texting her to try to get information from the case, and it's just been like no motivation.
Okay.
Okay. And then the commencement for the kitchen approval, or not the kitchen, but the bathroom approval, there was like a small delay with that, where the city had to notify Kayla if she needed to get a signature from me. So she had to send that to me to be signed, and my mom, and then back to the city to be submitted and processed. And that was
But the
noted.
bathroom was not one of the reasons why you're not in compliance. If you look at page 4A3, there's your list of violations.
But the HUD only allows her to do one project at a time and get paid after each inspection. From the HUD inspector, she gets paid, and then she can like move on to the next one.
I get that.
Okay.
But shouldn't the priority have been the stuff that was costing you $250 a day?
So,
Like painting the outside of the house. That was 490 days.
so up until well, you know, until Glenn was out of the picture, she didn't feel comfortable pulling the permit for the kitchen. And as soon as he was out of the picture and the HUD inspector changed, and then my mom had the phone call with the city, and then she became motivated to self-pay for the kitchen and communicated that to Kayla, and then she pulled the permit the next day.
Okay, the kitchen, it says unpermitted electrical wiring identified. I'm imagining that's the kitchen.
Yeah, so the electric that was stop work ordered was in the kitchen area, and
We're not fining you because your countertops were ugly. We're fining you because you had exposed electrical wires. Okay, none of this on the inside applies except for the electrical wiring in the kitchen.
Could you rephrase that question?
I didn't even ask you a question. All right, if you look at A3, please.
A3.
4A3.
Okay.
Got it. Okay. What is letter A?
Gas means.
Okay.
And just kind of.
And you only have to look at the first couple of words. And B?
Exposed wood. Do you want me to just go over each one? Like, it's just simple.
Again, this is your
Okay.
presentation, but
Okay.
you're not talking about why you're being fined.
Well, I can tell you.
The bathroom's nowhere on there.
Okay, so you're more interested in like direct causes of why something isn't happening, not like the whole picture?
I have to be able to subtract a number of days. I can't, like,
Okay, so every date here is like the days that I'm trying to get off. So
okay.
I can tell you the numbers added, like right now, if you want.
Well, like you have dental accident.
Okay. So I just took like a week off because I had to travel to get that fixed.
You had to go to Columbia to get implants?
So there was actually an accident at the house, and I was basically like pushed down the stairs, and I lost like 2 bottom teeth and like swallowed them. And then I had to go to the dentist, emergency dentist visit, but sorry.
Why'd you have to go to Columbia?
Because for the implants here, it was gonna be like 20 grand. And in Columbia, it was only like 6,000.
Okay.
So that's just a little time I was out of the country. So
Okay.
I took 6 days off for that. Yeah, let me see.
All right, what about the broken window? That's one of those violations.
Okay, so the window was broken from Hurricane Dorian because there was a plywood put over the window, and then when it was taken down, it cracked the window. And that was that same handyman guy who did that. And then moving forward, there can only be one GC on the project at a time. So she has to manage everything having to do with the house. I can't just like go sub someone out. So we
why
just
did it-
had to wait for Kayla to fix that.
Why did it take 162 days to replace a window?
Let me see. Did I write? There was a specific reason. Okay, so Kayla's like extremely forgetful person, and this whole time I'm trying to like help manage her and help manage a project. So as well, Glenn also reaches out to Kayla to remind her to pull the permit for the window.
No, Glenn's dead.
Oh, I meant Glenn, sorry.
Gwen,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay,
Gwen is
so
still alive.
she also has to reach out to Kayla.
She just moved. Okay.
Okay, so that would be when June 14th, 2021, is when the city sees the glass company at the property fixing the window, and Gwen has to send Kayla an email reminding her, like, hey, you said you were gonna add this to the permit, like, why are they out there? And so,
I didn't understand what you just said.
okay, so Gwen calls or emails Kayla and says, you said you were gonna add this to the permit.
Right?
So I'm just showing this to like prove that like this whole time, like everyone that we're dealing with this house is like a little loopy or something. Because it's like,
Why did you hire loopy people?
well, the house was coming, I tried, actually, that proves another point here. So with Glenn, HUD regulations, difficult, was another reason why I was asking for days off, because he was so controlling of the project. In one of the, I have the right number here, but in one of the screenshot of the text messages is when I'm trying to meet with someone around the same time that I met with Kayla, so I could have a backup option, just in case this falls through. Like, I'm so uptight and trying to do everything I can to make sure nothing is gonna fall through, and that I have 2 quotes, because we're so worried about going over the 68,000 with the 10% contingency. So, I'm trying to get a second quote, and Glenn actually like tells the guy like, F off, like we already have a contractor working. And I have the screenshot of that conversation with that contractor. Which would be. It's different. I have everything written down, so that's why I was saying, like, if I stick to this, it really will make sense.
It's your presentation.
Okay, so Glenn says to the guy, I'm already working with someone. So it's like I'm being corralled down a narrow path to jump through hoops so I don't close on the loan, like the loan doesn't default. So I'm literally just like, do whatever you gotta do to keep the ball rolling, like Kayla's on the same page. I think Glenn was just not trying to have the second contractor as an option because he's like, you're taking, it's taking so much time, you have Kayla, just move forward. But that was just me trying to have a safety net to fall on if Kayla fall through. But basically you're saying, why did I hire Kayla? I didn't have an option to do that. I tried to get a second quote and Glenn shut that down all the way down, so.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right, well, why did it take so long to paint the exterior of the building?
Okay, so the painting that I would like to prefer to have removed, so I attribute that to the construction project in general as a whole because, I'm not going to perfectly paint the garage door when it's getting replaced 2 months later, and same thing with the siding and the overspraying. So for violation E, from the start of the project till the end of the fines, if you look at general lack of experience in construction section, I was talking about how the violation E is delayed because of this consistent leak issue. So basically, like the siding, the garage door, the drip edge that was not painted was due to the gutters are going to cover that area. So the plywood that was on the top, the soffit, which is pretty much violation E, I thought that, it was like a decorative wood. Like, I liked the wood pattern. So I didn't even, know or have the knowledge until, she specifically told me a few months later with the wood situation. So for that, I put the dates here, and then these are the reference pages that support what I'm talking about.
Okay.
One of them is from her past. But I was hoping that, violation E could just be removed from January 21st, 2021 to May 26th, 2022.
But
Due
why?
to the fact that it's a process unfolding with the HUD of the siding, the garage door. So of course it's going to look oversprayed or unneat because it's an ongoing construction process with the wood and all of that. The color that the siding came in and the plywood that was installed, I thought that, those were acceptable colors. And then
Well, nobody's complaining that it was yellow and now it's kind of a grayish white.
so it says exposed plywood,
Right.
overspraying. But I'm trying to explain that
That's
my
on
lack of
page-
experience, I was thinking like, okay, the plywood pattern of the wood is like attractive. Like I thought that it could just stay that way. It has to be painted and protected. I've
Right.
learned that now.
It's on page A58. has the plywood. And then page 61 has essentially the same pictures with the painting problem.
So as you can see, the splotchy paint swatches, the white getting on that piece of wood underneath the drip edge. That's what's gonna be covered by gutters as well on the second level. The siding was completely replaced. So for a while, for violation E, essentially its whole life, I don't feel like I should be responsible for that because, you know, to paint the upstairs just in material is like at least $600. So I'm not like super motivated to like go fix that violation when I know it's about to be replaced. So I'm just asking for a little lenience with the construction
But
process.
at $250 a day, $1,250 a week,
Yeah. So I'm well aware of that now.
that's some,
But,
that would motivate
You
me.
know, being cheap in that scenario probably wasn't the best route. Definitely.
It makes whatever estimate differential you get between contractors look like pennies.
But I would like to say that the siding, I was pressing Kayla about the siding since the moment I met her. So I'm doing everything I can to get these people to do what they're supposed to do. Like, that was a change order to even get that siding because Glenn completely missed that it was EFIS. So EFIS is an exterior foam insulation system that is completely outdated. Insurance companies won't insure it. So that was another major burden on me that like, I'm not gonna have insurance. I'm gonna default my loan again. So it's another thing that I'm pressing for. Like, I don't like how it looks either. So I'm, you know, and then the roofers, they're saying the kitchen is consistently leaking through this whole project up until 2022. Because the roofers are telling me we're not gonna install flashing on EFIS. That's gonna cause us problems because EFIS is, you know, an outdated system. So they were saying they're not even gonna fix the flashing until there's new siding. So once the siding went up, the flashing was fixed, the roof was still leaking. So it wasn't until I was able to get new siding and new flashing that the roofers would even take the leak seriously, which also prevented the kitchen. Essentially, the entire fines for the kitchen and violation E, I'm asking for off because, like for instance, the kitchen, at one point, we did move forward with installing it despite the leak, and Kayla had to fix the ceilings 3 times from water
Hey,
damage every time it rained.
If I could remind you again, there is no kitchen violation.
The kitchen violation is the general building non-permitted work. I know it doesn't say kitchen, but that's actually what they're talking about. Because if you look in
Unpermitted
the
electrical wiring.
communications, that's like associated with it. That's separate. So the stop order, unpermitted electrical wiring, I believe that's, no, H. And then separately was the general renovations without a permit. So 2 separate.
Well, why wasn't a permit pulled?
With the handyman, I don't know why he was possessed to rip out the cabinets. I think it was so he could like be the one to replace them, like sell cabinets. I don't know why he didn't pull a permit. Probably because we didn't want him to rip out the kitchen at all. And he just squatted there. I wish I had more evidence around that. Just more like a under oath evidence.
So,
But I do have the listed pages here.
so you bought this house.
Yes.
You have a handyman who says, I can fix this house for you. And he moves in and ruins the inside.
It was more like me somewhat working alongside him in the beginning. I felt like I was maintaining that friendship, you know, pretty well. And then I didn't, you know, a little naive that it was like a plot to take advantage of me and my mom in the house. So that happened. The dental accident, and then the HUD loan. Just having to jump through the hoops with Glenn and Kayla, leading to a delay in the kitchen.
Right, but Kayla works for you.
Okay, no, so I'm not in control of my own money that I have to pay on a loan. Glenn is. Glenn decides the feasibility. Glenn decides what projects are mandatory and what products are recommended. He basically decides everything. So, and we didn't have a very good relationship, so.
Okay, why did you get yourself involved in this to begin with then?
If you go to page, let me show you. So if you look at page 14, I think it's 17, this is an article about how the HUD program makes your life better, it improves the value, they take care of everything that's unlivable. They even, do major landscaping, all of that. So I kind of feel that Glenn's inaccurate inspection and inaccurate scope of work set the project up for failure before we started. Like for instance, the Kayla on here, if you go to the photos, let me show you. Like for instance, I'm so motivated to get this project done that I found this man who was lifting a drop ceiling to build like a baseball batting cage, and he was selling the installation from that project. And so me trying to put everything back, the house didn't really have any insulation. It was mostly just rocks. I guess they used rocks. He loved rocks.
Rocks in the walls and ceilings?
So he had a ton of little rocks in the ceilings. That was like their form of insulation, I guess, in the 60s.
Steve?
I was born in '64, so I don't know.
So a giant vacuum with a grinder was rented and sucked out. That was the main thing. So this handyman was like helping me. I thought he was my friend. But then when he met my mom, he just completely finessed her, and that whole process started. But me and him, we rented the machine and sucked it out. And then I'm like getting this insulation because I'm like, I want my house to be livable. What am I gonna do, so I explained to Kayla, I have all this insulation. I practically took 10 years off my life with this house. Moving this insulation, paint spraying, I inhaled a ton of paint, I inhaled a bunch of fiberglass. I was chronically ill, basically.
You weren't wearing a mask?
I didn't know that it's so hot. You just don't want to wear that. So, no, I didn't wear a mask. I didn't realize I had to wear a mask with the paint sprayer. I would just, cough up, paint. Because the paint, I'm just not experienced. But I'm trying my best to make this project fit into an affordable thing. Because if I hire someone for $10,000 to paint the whole house, that's going to go onto the HUD budget, which is really tight at this point. So if you look at page 31, you see
what are you
the
going to do
insulation.
about the $122,750 fine?
I was just trying to get everything done as fast as possible, and I just thought if I did that, then the fines would resolve themselves, which obviously they never did. I was just completely unaware with this whole process. I didn't realize it was a real court. I wish that it was one of those situations where the officer has to hand you the letter and be like, you have to come to court, because I just was oblivious. I don't know why I was so oblivious to this process, but that's just the truth. And so back to the insulation, that I moved with 2 trucks and a U-Haul, and I get all this insulation in the house, and Kayla communicates to me via text message, oh, please don't worry about it, we're not gonna use that, I'll submit a change order for the insulation, I got you, it's gonna be livable. That seemed to be everyone's goal. So it's I trust her, And then the project was completed. I never got insulation. It's still something I have to do. So
There's
just
no
like-
insulation in the house.
And everything that isn't completed, I plan on like pulling the permits and completing.
I would suggest you do pull the
in
permits,
this little letter right here.
right?
It just explains that I do plan to, you know, I have more experience under my belt now, so I'm gonna definitely rent the tractor and level the front yard and get that planted with beautiful grass. And I also want to put rosemary and like pineapples. And because I know Gwen at one point was actually asking within the fine, the non-compliance list, one of the things actually said, what are you planning on doing with the grass, because it's dying in some areas. So even now, like, the grass is a little patchy, but there's always a plan for everything to be fixed. Like, I'm always trying to be on top of that. So as far as like why everything just took so long, I would attribute it to these main little bullets. So COVID, actually did have COVID in the beginning of January 2021. So I couldn't work,
And what do you do for a living?
I was working as a bartender at the time. Now I'm real estate agent. I just got that though, so I haven't like started working doing that yet.
So from January 1st through January 29th, you had COVID.
So, yeah.
And how did that affect the project?
It definitely affected the project because I had like a major, even more of a lack of money during that time. And the workers were not wanting to like work as a team, so it was just more spaced out. The appliance and cabinet delivery delays, which are, everything that I'm speaking about is in the notes and in the submitted evidence on both her evidence and my evidence.
Okay.
So since we both overread it, I'm just kind of like expecting you to remember it. So I don't have to keep like.
That's okay.
But the reference pages are somewhat here. I didn't include the CDC printout of the COVID and all that because, you know, you saw it last time, so. And then the chronic illnesses and surgeries. I had 3 major surgeries in 2021. The April 14th one was somewhat of an emergency, but it was planned like 2 weeks in advance. The August 10th one was planned a few years in advance. And then because of that surgery, the situation with the life-threatening, life-saving surgery, I actually went to the emergency room 3 times before September 6th to try to tell them I'm in extreme pain and dying. And they basically like wouldn't believe me because they kept blaming it on the August 10th surgery. They're saying this is just normal complications for you to be in pain from your surgery you had a few weeks ago. So they wouldn't believe me. I went like 3 times. I finally go back the 4th time and they do a CT scan. And so it was determined I had like internal bleeding. So like a ruptured fallopian tube. So that was like extremely painful. So around that time, around this whole little time of all these surgeries, I'm basically like completely inactive. So I listed the dates there of each surgery and kind of like some recovery time in there, but also, yeah. And then moving on to violation E, which I already discussed, and then the HUD change orders that never happened, which I started to discuss, which happened in April 2022, which basically was the insulation never got handled. The paint was never subbed out because Glenn originally told me that I could be subbed for the paint and pay myself, which would have like really helped the progress.
I imagine it would have.
Yeah. And then also there was things that was going on that I had to pick up a ton of slack with Kayla as far as to even get the kitchen completed. For instance, she sent her electrical guys, they throw the oven in the cabinets and it just breaks all the cabinets. Like it just falls to the ground. So.
Again, the kitchen is not why we're
No,
here.
it is. Right, it is.
Yes.
That was like the main thing.
No, the wires are why we're here,
The wires, okay.
not the cabinets.
Okay, so not just the cabinets, but just pulling that permit completion, I don't think she could, I think she pulled the electrical permit at the same time. So she pulled the kitchen permit for electrical on the 26th of May, 2021, and to bring the kitchen to code the day before that. So bring the kitchen to code, electrical May 26th, 2021. And so I lost my train of thought there. So the point of me saying that is because to get the house, to get that, let me see which one it was, because you were saying it's not the kitchen, but it's the kitchen and electrical, but it just says general on permanent construction. Those were the two main ones that also lasted a while. But yeah, so she pulled the permit for that, and it took all the way until 2022 May for her to become compliant with that. And so the point of me bringing that up is because I had to hire people just to keep Kayla on track. So she was never gonna be like, oh, the sink doesn't have a mount. Oh, the oven doesn't have a mount. She's never gonna be like, oh, let me fix that because I'm the overseeing contractor. It's more like it's gonna take weeks and weeks to get done unless I just do it. So I hired like, well, basically it was just me, but I built the frame for the sink in the kitchen and as well for the oven, so that they could come back out and the electricians could finish installing that oven and whatnot. And then holidays, I contribute 13 total holidays because there's 10 federal holidays per year, and there was one full year of being fined. So that was that. 13 days. And then the commencement, I know you're saying that the bathroom wasn't having to do with the fines. But for some reason, because of Glenn, Kayla would only take one project at a time and would not touch the kitchen until the HUD inspector was replaced. So, which was around February, so I wrote these dates here. Okay. And then we already talked about Glenn passing away.
All right, I'll give you 5 more minutes to sum this up.
Okay.
I can't keep
Okay, so the other
5 city employees here all day.
Okay. So the other major thing was the robbery that happened. So
They
there
stole
was,
the handyman stuff.
he stole, or they stole, Kayla's tile workers saw, wet saw. They took my paint sprayer and attachments and the cooktop and the pressure washer, which were all needed items towards that final compliance of the plywood and the paint. So I wrote the dates for that I would want to remove the days, and the reference to that evidence is page 7, which is the police
So
report.
you're asking, wait a second, you're asking for a year and 2 months to recover from the robbery?
So the date of the robbery, and then up until the compliance date, because of the fact that the insurance never paid out to replace those items that I needed to do that painting. And eventually I just ended up hiring someone when I realized that, you know, this isn't gonna work out. And then moving on to terrazzo, during this time, they were actually noting that the bathroom, Kayla would not sign something that said the bathrooms were fully put together. So that's why I put that in there, to just note that the toilets had to be temporarily removed so that the terrazzo could be polished. That was between December 1st, 2020 and January 30th, 2021. And then the budget, which I explained, which you have to stick to Glenn's feasibility report and have control. The insurance never pays out, which was from March 16, 2021 to current. The hurricanes which happened, which delayed workers and caused minor damage in the cracked window, which happened between September 1st and 4th, 2020, as well November 10th and September 5th, Hurricane Nicole. I believe that was 2021. Okay, and then the last thing was just the roof leaking, which caused major delays because Kayla had to keep repairing the ceiling in the kitchen. That also delayed for a while until we did decide to just move forward to get it done with. She didn't want to put the drywall back because of the consistent leaking. She didn't want to put the appliances, the electrical, because she was concerned it would cause damage to those things. So until that new flashing and siding, the kitchen could not go back, which was the general work. So I put the dates there from the siding date until the date that it was fixed.
So how many days do you think were not your fault?
Based off of each little letter. Okay. Oh wait, hold on, let me just find the paper. Okay. So, the handyman situation, which started in August 2019 to May 19th, 2021, which was 651 days or 484 non-compliant days times 2 for I and H, which was the, I think it's in the front.
I'll give you a chance.
Well, you know I and H, you have it there too. For violations I and H. So that's times 2, 484. The dental accident.
So you think only 7 days are your fault? There's
looking at
491 days.
The contribution that the handyman caused major delays due to the extent of the damage, the stop work orders that were created because of that damage, and having to change the locks. And yeah, so that's that. Did you want to go over the evidence presented for that?
No, I just want to know how many days you think are not your fault. Give me a number.
So for both I and H, 484 times 2.
It's 484 times 2.
Because I'm assuming both I and H, the days might be like 1 or 2
So
off.
968 days were not your fault.
For that particular.
So we owe you $250 a day.
Well, these days overlap.
Right. You don't get credit for, say, May 29th 7 times. It's just 1 day. You follow what I'm
I
saying?
just tried to count the days that it was non-compliant, and then since I'm trying to say both I and H was affected, I just said times 2. I don't know. You're saying
Well,
it's wrong.
you've got multiple duplicates of days in here.
I'm not really sure.
Okay. If you're saying, for instance, that you submitted a permit to the city on June 1st, and it took them till June 5th to bring it back to you, that's 5 days. In addition, if you were out for your fallopian tube emergency from June 1st to June 5th, that's the same 5 days. I don't give you 10 days, I only give you the 5.
Okay. The days that I thought overlapped in that manner, I didn't count out. So, like, for the HUD regulations, the dates for that one, I didn't put a number under it because the robbery spans over those days. So, the robbery, I believe, affected the property from being compliant due to the insurance not recovering it, the bank spur and attachments we needed, the cooktop, which was on back order because of COVID, the pressure washer, all of that, which is needed to bring the property into restoration. So from the date of robbery till the date of compliance, 435
So
days.
you're saying that, all right, non-compliance from January 19th, let's see, that's 19th is 12 plus February
Which one are you?
40, so 56 days is what you think you're responsible for.
I don't see January 19th.
That's when we started this.
Oh, okay. It just depends which violation. Because the violation for the grass, I would say, you know, the first 3 months, it was completely overgrown. From there, it started to get more maintained, up until the point that I move in, and it's basically flawless.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I'm just asking for a little leniency and time and days based on the chain of events and the process of events, and things had to unfold in a certain process to even get to, you know, kitchen compliance or painting. The only one that I'm had to hire someone towards the end of this would be the soffit on the second level. I really didn't want to be responsible for E because it had to do with the overspraying on the garage, the drip edge that was going to be covered, the door framing that was going to be replaced. But the only thing with that one was just the soffit on the second level, which I explained, like, I thought would be pretty to leave it like a wood pattern. Obviously not. But I feel like the days that I've asked off are pretty reasonable.
How many are those? I'm looking for a number.
Do you want me
And
to
I'm going to
add
give
it
you
all together?
1 minute to come up with it, and then we're done.
Do you want me to add all the numbers together, though?
Well, this was your presentation. I told you how I wanted it, and that was I wanted a number to subtract from 491 that you could justify.
Okay, so for facts, IH, 184 days. And then having to jump through the hoops of the HUD loan, not being able to pull the permit right away because of the plan, and just the HUD loan in general. That one stands from April 22nd, 2020 to May 25th, 2021. So, I mean, like, I could write down all the dates and come up with the most accurate number right now if you want.
Okay, let me hear from Ms. Herstein.
Okay.
I did have a question
Okay?
for Ms. Harvey. And I believe that you that you asked it, we didn't get down to the boiled down version. How many days of the $251 per day fine do you feel that you are responsible for? That you can legitimately look at it? I heard you say a month with one, the grass, you said 3 months for another. So do you have a number of days? And
Yeah.
possibly he doesn't want to pull you away from what you're doing that he's asked you for, but that was a question that I
Make sure
had.
that they're not overlapping, so when I add them together, it's the correct number.
Okay,
All right, then,
Your Honor, I would like to, if I may. We've never been handed anything this comprehensive as far as reasons for delays paired with evidence, cross-referencing with evidence. So this is the first time that I've seen anything that I can recall being this comprehensive. That allowed me also some time to sort of go through it.
okay.
And eliminate some of the overlaps which were obvious, you know, based on the dates. Eliminate some of the things which happened before the fines, et cetera.
Do you have a number of days you believe she was not responsible for?
Well, I was able to, based on what we have and what may make sense, if I may.
Sure.
I could eliminate 373 days. And I can break it down for you as to what I gave based on, you know, Glenn passing away. I attributed 90 days of worth of delay.
I
not
gave her
being her fault.
129 for Glenn.
And
Okay.
I was left with 118 days worth of fines. That's 29,500. I normally don't make any kind of a recommendation, but I've never been given something that I could approach methodically
Okay.
before. So if I may, if that's valuable in any way, great, but I will also go back to my seat.
No, this is very interesting. Ms. Harvey,
Yes.
the city believes that you are responsible for 118 days. I have a number that I've calculated that is a lot more than that. Do you want to take the 118 days the city is offering?
Well, when you put it like that, it kind of makes me want to. I would love to see exactly what days aren't overlapping. But
Well-
I will accept that if you advise, or not
They're-
advise, but.
They're saying that you're not responsible for 373.
Okay, that's, I mean,
Okay.
that's kind of close, so.
I think that you are responsible for quite a bit more days, based upon your testimony and evidence.
Yes.
Would you like to take the city's offer, or do you want me to pronounce what I think
No,
it is?
I will take that offer.
You'll take the city's offer.
It still hurts a little, but I'll take that.
$29,500.
What about adding on to that, just one of these? Because I feel like I proved
Would you
something.
like to take the city's offer?
Yeah, I'll take that offer.
Good plan. Because my
About
number
11
was
mine.
well over 70,000. All right. So based upon the city's recommendation, I'm finding that you're not responsible for 373 days, making you responsible for 118 days, which is $29,500. Yes, I know that's a lot of money. If you're curious, my number was 74,750. In addition to that, and I can see the pained look on your face, I'm ordering that you pay looking for the affidavit of costs.
4A-52, Your Honor.
Thank you. $121.13 within 60 days.
Okay.
Okay? Do you understand what happened here?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll get what I can take, I guess.
I think that's a smart
I
plan.
think this is a little bit, too laid out to.
Well, what I was asking for was something I could hang my hat on as far as number of days that didn't duplicate. Like I said, you don't get credit 3 times for the same 5-day period.
So each little infraction, has its own 490 days.
400
So I thought it was like
No.
adding up
The whole thing was 491 days.
for, okay, so they're only fining for one little letter?
Any letter
So all the letters are.
constitutes the entire thing, but each letter doesn't, you're not getting fined for A and fined for B, or and C and D and E
Oh, I didn't know.
individually.
Oh,
You're getting fined for the whole thing. You had to get rid of all of the letters to eliminate the fine. Any one fine could have racked up the same number of days as 5 together.
oh. So essentially, if it was the way that I thought it was, my 120,000 would be times like 5.
No.
Oh. Well, I don't get it, but it's okay.
So you reduced it about $90,000.
This is the same one that I gave you, but it just has like the actual days. I don't know if you wanted to see this.
You're not going to do better with me than you did with Ms. Herstein,
Okay,
okay?
alrighty then.
All right. So Sherry, would that be a 12 or a 13? Which order?
I believe it, the 13 is.
All right, then order 13,
I believe.
$29,500
I'm sorry.
in fines, and we'll give her a year.
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I want to make sure 13 is the reduction order.
Yes, let me make sure.
Order number
13.
13 is reduction.
Yeah, order reduced, yes, 13 is the reduction order,
Okay, then we are good, order 13.
okay?
And everything's paid in 60 days?
No.
Oh, okay,
Can you pay $121.13 in 60 days?
Yes.
How long do you need to pay $29,500?
Does it matter how long? Can it be?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
If you don't, it goes back to 122.
okay,
And I don't want this to sound like a game show, but I'm trying to be reasonable
you
with,
said 26,000?
call it 30.
Okay, can it be like 6 years or something?
Now, how about 12 months?
Okay,
By then, you should have enough equity in the house. You might be able to take out a home equity loan.
yeah,
That,
yeah.
all right? Okay, and what did you learn here?
The biggest lesson I would say is that like this system is like a real court system. I didn't-
Is real what?
This is like a real court thing. Like I didn't realize like
Well,
I thought
you
it was
didn't
just the
wear a
city was,
suit
like-
today to play court.
Well, that I didn't realize the process of this, like how serious it was. I just thought if I continued to complete things, it would just like kind of go away. And then the other thing is just like I definitely never want to be cheap again in my life.
Well, this
'Cause
city
I tried so hard to.
has an amazing code enforcement department, and if you stay in touch with them, it really helps.
Yeah, I mean we were in touch.
Huh?
I mean we were in touch quite often. It's just like the process. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I mean, I
Okay.
do know.
Pardon?
I mean, I do know what happened, but it's
Okay.
just, I don't know what happened, like, why, you know what I mean?
We're done.
Okay.
Okay? Does anybody have any other thing they'd like to bring up? Sorry. Okay, next code enforcement hearing is scheduled for June 25th, 2023 at 9 a.m. We're done. Thank you.
Thanks for the invitation.
You're welcome, that's my job.